Now, over the past few months, we've seen floods and fires wreak havoc across vulnerable communities, destroying homes and leaving many destitute. So what can be done to curb the negative impact of climate change and weather-related damage in the country? Let's chat more about this now with Associate Professor of Zoology and Entomology at the University of the Free State. That's Alisa Leroux. Prof, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks so much for your time. We've been warned, we see here, about a climate crisis storm that's being predicted. It sounds very ominous. What should we be preparing for?
Hi. Yes, so what we've seen is quite an increase in the number of weather-related disasters in the past 2 decades specifically, and I think we can expect more of these events, specifically flooding and droughts and wildfires and extreme temperatures, as into the next 3 decades as the climate keeps shifting.
All right, well, tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us more about the why. What are you seeing out there that is causing all of this?
Yeah, so we're actually seeing 3 factors that's contributing to this. The first factor is that the climate is shifting. So there is enough historical evidence and new scientific evidence that's showing us that the frequency and the intensity of weather-related hazards are changing. And for South Africa, that means hotter temperatures, changes in the amounts of rainfall. Certain areas getting more extreme rainfall, other areas expecting more drought. But then there's also a second contributing factor, and that is that South Africa is still a growing and urbanizing country. So we're seeing lots more population growth, and many of that growth into our cities and towns. So we're expecting about 20 million additional people in the next 3 decades in South Africa, the majority to be located in our cities. And that, coupled with slow economic growth, is translating into a lot of informality. So we're seeing a lot of informality and growth in informality, and many of those people locating within riverbeds or dangerous areas. And that's also contributing to the losses that we're seeing. People being flooded away, economic losses, infrastructure being swept away. And then thirdly, the maintenance of our city, the way we're designing our cities, the way we're designing our infrastructure, that is also unfortunately lacking behind, and that's also contributing to the vulnerabilities we see.
So you mentioned infrastructure, and I would imagine that that is particularly one of the big ones at the moment. We know we're battling with that, and you have to wonder, why are we in this situation? And the reasons are sort of, there are so many reasons out there as to why our infrastructure is failing us. But what should we be doing as of today? What can we do to prepare for this and to minimize the damage that will be caused by this?
So I think it's a matter of urgency when we design our cities to accommodate these people that are influxing into our cities. Adequate land needs to be provided to these people so they can locate on safe spaces. Then, of course, basic infrastructure needs to be provided. The backlog in housing is causing lots of people to locate in informality and informal settlements. These are not resilient to heat. I think heat being one of South Africa's emerging issues will also start becoming a problem in the next 2 to 3 decades. Infrastructure specifically, when we design roads and bridges and stormwater systems, we need to think about how the climate has shifted and how it's likely to shift within the next 2 or 3 decades. And then we need to design these stormwater systems to accommodate these expected rainfalls. And we also need to think a little bit smarter. There's lots of new technologies. So the way we're designing our cities, for instance, we need to create things like permeable surfaces. We need to use different construction materials. It's a little bit cooler. It mitigates something like the urban heat island effect. We need to create fire breaks. We need to maintain those fire breaks in high-risk fire areas. So there's many adaptation actions, in fact, that we can utilize and mainstream into city planning. And then coupled with that is good land use planning and the execution of that, and ensuring people are not being located or locating on high-risk areas.
Well, Prof, I can already see many people rolling their eyes at home going, well, really, we can't even get electricity and water to our people. How are we going to prevent this kind of damage and destruction in the next couple of years? I mean, are we capable in South Africa? Are we capable of doing all the things that you just told us we need to do so that we can keep literally our heads above water at the time? And who's getting it right? Who can we learn from?
I think definitely lots of this is just good planning practices. Land use management is already legislated in the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act. Disaster responses is already legislated. So I think it's good land use planning, good practices, things that's already in place, just maintaining those infrastructure ensuring that just prior to the rainfall season that our gutters are cleared, the stormwater systems are open and adequate so the water can actually drain, creating a fire break around a high-risk fire city. That's not a very expensive thing, clearing those fuel loads, ensuring we rehabilitate our ecosystems. Those are practical things we can do on a daily basis. It's not high cost, and that's good planning practices, and we should just continue to do those.
All right, well, we've been warned. Thanks very much. That's Professor Elise LaRouche. She's an Associate Professor of Zoology and Entomology at the University of the Free State.